This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, all right. So myself, Harikishan. So basically, I have 14 years of experience in working, developing or designing enterprise applications. Primarily, I am a Java JT developer. So currently, I'm working as a solution architect or technical architect, working on the customer deployments. I provide architecture and solutions for the customer problems. And from 1.5 to 2 years, I've been also working designing AWS deployments. So in this session, today we start on EC2, which is a very critical web service in AWS, where most of the computing stuff will be leveraged using EC2 service. So primarily now people are migrating their legacy deployments and applications into the AWS. So EC2 is the very basic or very commonly used, mostly used web service. And also, if somebody wants to get certified in, let's say, AWS developer and architect, it is very important to have a very good understanding on EC2 service. So this is a very vast service. I will try to cover it in 2 or 3 sessions, but today I will definitely going to give an overview of what is EC2, and we'll talk about some benefits over legacy VirtualBox or VMware, the kind of counterparts we had in the past. Then I'll talk about pricing model. Let me mute everybody. So all right. So yeah, the pricing model is very important to understand, because when we design or architect any solution, it is very important we consider the pricing, how the pricing is going to be, because every minute you're going to pay once your application is deployed in AWS. So picking up the right EC2 type and pricing model is very important. So I will spend the time on that. And this is pricing is also very important when you are attending your certification test, or you are attending an interview which you want to AWS job. That is also very important. Then I talk about instance types and some security group, how it is attached to your EC2 instances. Then we today we will try also to spin up a EC2 instance, and then we run some web server on it, and we'll try to access it. We'll see if time permits. I will also try to access some S3 buckets from the EC2 instance, and we will talk about how the IAM users and roles, which we discussed in the last session, will be used. But I will see if time permits, we'll do it. Otherwise, I will try to do it in the next session. Going to the next slide. Basically, EC2 is a web service provided by Amazon, using which you can create your virtual machines. Like if you already have in your organization, you have your virtual servers, virtual boxes created, and so you can install your software. So similarly, so on the Amazon AWS, EC2 is a web service using which you can create your virtual machine. So this is like how we can spin up, like take an example, like in the Oracle VirtualBox, if you can install it, basically it provides an interface for you to create a virtual machine. You are allowed to select the OS, all those details. So similarly, EC2 is again a service which will allow you to provide an interface in the AWS Management Console to create your virtual machine, and it will also allow you to create EC2 in programmatically or through AWS software development kit as well. Right. So, what is the benefit with EC2? Basically, it will allow you to scale your application easily. Like you can spin up 100 EC2 virtual machines in no time, in minutes, and you will have your complete control over your EC2 instances, that is your virtual machine. So you can create, you can define your security things, and you can open the port you want to open, and you can close the port you want to close. So all that kind of access, you can control it with the EC2. So all the controls what we used to have with our traditional virtual machines or VMware, you still have that control on the EC2 instances you create in your AWS account. And flexible cloud hosting services. So with EC2, there is a vast number of instance types. So basically, depending on your application requirement, you can pick up the corresponding EC2 type. You can bring up that EC2 instance. For example, you are trying to install a Oracle database server or any or a NoSQL database server. So there will be a corresponding instance type you can pick from the list of available instance types, so that the application is ideally designed for that kind of uh, needs, application needs or software needs, right? So that is one more, and there is, and also this EC2 is integrated with other AWS services like S3 Bucket or any RDS or VPC. It works with auto scaling. We have elastic scaling and all that kind of AWS services already integrated with EC2, which I will also try to cover it in this session itself. So because every EC2 instance will come up with, say, if we install Amazon Linux, it comes up with software development kit, some ready-made commands are already available, so you can access your S3 bucket or another AWS service within that EC2 instance, right? And it is reliable. So the infrastructure is actually managed by Amazon, and they, as per the license agreement, they provide 99% availability. So it is very reliable, and you can assume that it is uh, crash proof or something like that, right? And security wise, right? Amazon is again compliant on the many of the security requirements, and also it allows, on top of that, it allows uh, services which can be managed by individual AWS user, where you can create security groups, and also if you define, attach your EC2 instance in a virtual private cloud, it is also protected, and where you can define your network access controls so that you can secure your EC2 instance. And the other one, which they say inexpensive, I, including me, and there are many other users, people, they may not agree that is inexpensive, because it is not true for all the cases, because depending on your application requirement, we need to pick whether we should go to AWS or not. So yeah, inexpensive, I have a mixed feeling. I say expensive or inexpensive, but it all depends on the use case on the particular application. So you have to be very careful when taking a decision to move your application to AWS. You have to consider a lot of other aspects, whether you have a uh, continuous business for next 2 years or 3 years, something like that. Many aspects you need to consider before moving your software and application to AWS or EC2 instance. And it is easy to start, which I will show in this session, where how I will spin up EC2 instance and install some web server in it and write some HTML code there. And like I mentioned, using AWS EC2 instance is costs money, and that money you have to be paying regularly. So every hour you will be using the AWS resources, you will be paying money to Amazon. So you have to be very careful, and careful consideration to be taken when you pick the EC2 instance types or models, pricing models. So basically we have four pricing models. The very first one is on demand. So on demand is where you will not be giving any commitment to Amazon that you will be using this EC2 instance for say 1 month or 2 months or 1 year like that. So you just spin up the EC2 instance whenever you want it, and you can shut down or terminate the EC2 instance whenever you're done with your work. So the pricing will be calculated on the hourly basis. So let's say you have started your EC2 instance now, which is 8:15 in the central time, and say you let's say you shut down your server at 8:30, so you will be charged for 1 hour basically. Yeah, but you're free to use it till 9 o'clock. But yeah, that is how they charge it. But I think recently they have started billing based on the seconds also, which is very good. So in a nutshell, on demand is when you don't have any commitment that you will be using the EC2 instance for longer period, but you can just whenever you need EC2 server, you can spin up one server and you can terminate anytime you want, and you will be paying to Amazon for the only time you are using that EC2 instance, right? So then we have spot instances. Spot instance is not something like a bidding where you will be putting an order like you will be placing stock market, right? So suppose the stock market you will be putting, okay, I will buy this stock if this price comes to this so and so price. So similarly, you will be placing an order to Amazon saying, give me this particular EC2 instance if the price is of this particular rate. Then once that you place that order, if that price comes to that, you will be getting your EC2 instance. So you will have to put some automated code to run there, and so that whenever that EC2 instance is pinned up, your application or say some batch processing is to be done, where you have to say process 100 record or 1,000 record or 1 million records. You can define the job and attach to that particular EC2 instance, so that if there's EC2 instance is available at the price you asked for, the instance will be allocated to you, and that job can be executed. But only thing we have to consider here is the job which you are attaching to that particular instance cannot be critical, and it is not guaranteed that it will be executed. So you have to consider that if the execution of that particular job is not critical, you can go with the spot instances. It's more of a bidding. So Amazon, what they do is they at any given time they will be having a pre-pool of EC2 instances, and if they want to give that to this spot instances, they will give it. But say at the same time, once you got the spot instance and there is another on-demand request came to spin up the EC2 instance, and they don't have any more EC2 instances left, they will terminate your spot instance and they will allocate to the on-demand request. So you have to be uh, careful and considering that aspect when you are going for the spot instance. Then we have dedicated host. Dedicated host, nothing but you will be asking them for, you say you don't want any multi-tenancy where the same hardware will be used for another customer. So this is very much required in case you have a license, software license, Oracle license, where they don't want to use it for multi-tenancy, or similarly some government strict guidelines are there that they don't want multi-tenancy. In that case, you can go for the dedicated host. So you will be given a dedicated hardware for you, and only you will be using that hardware, but still it will be available through Amazon AWS. So you will be using through Amazon Management Console. Then we have reserved instances where you have to give a commitment of 1 year or 3 years that you will be using this EC2 instance for 1 year or 3 years. So this is very useful when you know that for next 1 year or 3 years you're going to use this your application. Let's say you are hosting an application for a customer who has already signed for you say 5 years contract. In that time you can definitely go with this reserved instances, because you get lesser price compared to on-demand EC2 instances because you're giving upfront commitment that you will be using that EC2 instance for 1 year or 3 years. So yeah, these are the different pricing models. So understanding these pricing models is very important in your job. Like say you are doing a AWS application design, so you should be knowing what that particular, you know your application better, right? Which component does what kind of work. So let's say you have a batch processing which does it very unimportant. For that, you can pick spot instance, and that let's say you have another server which has to be running always for next 1 year. Then you have to go for the reserved instance. So like this, you have to mix and match these pricing models, and you have to pick the EC2 instances accordingly. So you can have all this together in your overall solution because in an application you will have different kinds of application softwares, right? So you can pick them and pick that particularly. Suppose let's say within your application itself, you have an Oracle license which needs dedicated host. So for your database server, you have to pick dedicated host. Then for your application server, which you can run it in the multi-tenancy, then you can pick for reserved instance. Then for your log processing, which is not so important, but it can wait for say a daily job. You can pick spot instances, and suddenly say your development team wants to do some deployment or development testing, then you can go with the on-demand pricing, and you can use it for the time they are using, and then you can terminate that. So it is very important to understand all these different four pricing models. So that will save a lot of money. And also, if you are having any plans to do the certification, remembering these four pricing models, you will be able to answer minimum 3 to 4 questions uh, on the EC2 topic, right? Let me unmute in case anybody has any questions they can ask. Yeah, any questions?
Hey, Harshad here. So regarding the spot instances, so you said for the batch jobs or something that we can use, but normally we need to make sure that batch job is running. Then, I mean, are you talking about production or non-production?
Yeah, it could be a production or it could be a non-production. I mean, it's depending on the work you want to do with your spot instance or EC2 instance. So that the work which you are planning to execute in the EC2 instance, uh, say if you're okay, if that work doesn't get executed also, or if you're okay if that work gets stopped in the middle, because let's say you got a spot instance allocated by Amazon, and the job is executing. Let's say the job is takes 1.5 hours, but in the 45th minute, Amazon got another request with a higher price. They're going to terminate your spot instance. So you need to be aware of that. Those you need to be aware of those aspects and consider and use that spot instance.
Yeah. So, I mean, my point is spot instances. I'm not really clear because we don't know, right, how long I would be getting this spot instance. I mean, the EC2 for any work. I mean, it could be any development, it could be a batch job, it could be in a production stuff. But it's looks like it's more fragile. Or maybe it's. I mean, I will not be sure that okay I can get that work done. So I mean I just wanted to understand like what would be the real life uh, scenario where or use case where I can use this spot instances.
All right. So let me take a real life scenario. Like say you have say 500 millions of records, which are usually collected from the application log, or you're indexing that data into a database, and where background job running, which takes this data and analyzes it and generate some useful information, but that information is not critical or real time required. But over the period of say 1 month or 2 months, you will be that analyzation will be completed. Like you have the time. You don't have like real time. You have to run the job. But whenever you get any capacity, EC2 instance capacity, just you resume that processing and continue from where you left it, and execute for say one hour or 30 minutes. Suppose again it got disrupted, EC2 instance is taken by Amazon, you can still live with it, live with that, and you can still wait for the next availability of your EC2 instance coming, and continue your processing or the log processing for next whenever the next compute window. So in that way, you don't have any impact if the job gets disrupted or delayed for 2 days or 3 days. So in that cases, you can pick spot instances. That is very, like nowadays people doing machine learning jobs where they see how the customer behaving, or from the cart shopping cart from which position to which position they are going, so that they can make a recommendation engine or search engine like that. So that is not really critical, but over the period of 1 month or 2 months, they will find, okay, majority of these customers are interested in this particular product. So they're trying to get some useful information or a recommendation out of it. So I would say recommendation engine is the best example, where you can, whenever you get a spot instance, you can do that analysis like a machine learning kind of thing, and then you can make a meaningful information out of it. But yeah, you have a requirement where the job is very critical. You can't live with that without executing, or you can't tolerate if somebody terminates that instance. Then spot instance is not the option for you.
Yeah, so that's a
Does
nice
that answer?
example. Yeah, so one more question. So when EC2 spot instance, if I got it on the bidding price, whatever I was quoted for, so I need to do like all the setup, right? To run the job. So, and if my price, somebody gets a better price and my instance is gone, so, and maybe again I got it, so I need to do all the setup again and resume the job, or it's automatic?
Yeah, so there are ways, right? So there are ways to automate it. I will try to talk about a bootstrap script is there, where you can do the initial setup for that, which is automated, which doesn't take a minute or 2 minutes. So yeah, you have to automate your deployment, or your job should be such a way that it just needs computing power, like a CPU cycles or a RAM. That's it, right? Not your job, you should separate the dependencies in such a way that whenever I get a server or a computer, I should be able to execute my job. You have to design like that. It's all depending on how you design your job, right? So yeah.
So, Hari, this Sudipta here. So, just thought of asking, it's a kind of resuming from the same point where we lost the EC2 instance. Is it possible in case of spot instance?
Yeah, so it again depends, right? So you have to maintain that context, where you maintain your context. Like, let's say you are processing 1 million records, and say when you get a spot instance, you have processed 10,000 records. That you have to maintain that context somewhere external to the your spot instance, EC2 instance, so that whenever you get your next time spot instance, okay, I have processed 10,000 records. I have to start from the next record, right? So it is how you maintain your context information, so that you know from where to start from. So yeah, that is the simple terms. That is how you can achieve your job. But yeah, it's all depends on how you design your job, so that you're not. You should be aware that how you're going to get this computing capacity, and should be ready that you're going to lose this instance anytime. So you shouldn't have any impact over that. So But if you cannot maintain that context and you are not, you cannot tolerate that, then spot instance is not the right choice for you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Hari,
So
in the spot instances, let's say that in the course of shutdowning the instance, let's say that my instance got crashed. So at the point of time, do we have to have a backup solution with us, or do we have any Amazon AWS backup solution for that, and they will provide it? How exactly in that scenario? Just in the kind of.
yeah, so when it comes to the spot instance, Amazon simply terminates your EC2 instance, and you will not be charged for that hour. Basically, so Amazon charges for per hour basis, right? So let's say you have bid for a EC2 instance for 6 hours, and you got it, and the EC2 instance is ran for 2 hours, and in the third hour, in the middle of the third hour, Amazon got a better deal, and some another user bid for the higher price. So what they will do is they will terminate your EC2 instance immediately, and they will charge for from you only for the 2 hours, not for the third hour. That is how it is. So smart instance is very volatile, so you cannot assume things go in your way. So you should be ready for that.
Oh, okay, got you. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So quickly move to the next slide. So let me mute all. Okay. So this is how the pricing model is. Like I said, having a very good understanding on these things will help you a lot to design a better AWS application. And coming to the instance types, we have, like I mentioned, there are different types of EC2 instance types where you have to pick depending on your application needs. So in a typical application, you may have a web application, your application server like WebLogic or a JBoss. Also, you may have some database servers. You will have some Spark machine learning jobs defining, and sometimes if your application is a kind of a video processing where it processes some images and videos, so you have to pick that corresponding instance type, so that because those instances are designed for that kind of jobs, right? So that's why we have a lot of variety of options. You have like general purpose where you can deploy web servers, application servers, and if database size is very small, you can still go with the general purpose. But there are compute optimized instance types where your CPU cycles, you need more CPUs, like you need more cores. That time you can say your application requires a lot of CPU operations it is doing. In that case, you have to go with this compute optimized instance types. Then there is one memory optimized. Let's say you need a lot of RAM, like 34 GB or more than that. You need that kind of RAM requirement. Then you have to go with the memory optimized instance types. Then we have accelerated computing type where you are doing a video processing or a Bitcoin mining, very extensive operations. You do like that, then you can go with that accelerated computing. Just imagine if you want to do any Bitcoin mining and all, you have to spend a lot of money to get that hardware. But whereas here, say for doing the coin mining experimentally, you can always go with an on-demand accelerated computing EC2 instance, and you can do some experiment or you can do the practice. So that is one advantage. Then we have storage optimized where you say, let's say, NoSQL databases like MongoDB or something like that you want to install, you can go with the Amazon storage optimized instance types. Let me quickly show you from Amazon site itself. It tells this is how the instance types. Hope you see this, right? Okay. Yeah. So if you want to know more about the EC2 instance types, you can go to the Amazon site where you see compute optimized memory optimized, accelerated, and so let's go to general purpose where you see T3, T3A, T2. So what you see this number is, the number is a kind of, you can treat that as a version because you see this same page in the next month or 2 months later, you see A2 or A3 like that. So they add T2 first, then they add T3 next version within the in that class, then they have next version T3A. So similarly, on the compute optimized thing, you have C4, C5, then C5N. You never know. I mean, tomorrow or next month you will see C6 as well. So it's the number, just a version. So you can think like C4 came first, then they have come up with more improvements and they came up with the next version. So if you go on the every section, right, you see some more information about that particular EC2 instance. So if you go with the C5 large, you get 2 virtual CPUs, 2 cores, I would say. You can call it as a 2 cores. And you see what is the RAM you will be getting with that kind of EC2 class. So if you want, say, 4 cores, then you have to go with the C5X large, or say you want 72 cores, you can go with C5 18X large, and this is how the memory will be, and accordingly the pricing will be charged. The price will be charged. So this is the best place where they also try to give some explanation where you want to use it. I mean, in which case this is more suitable. Let's take this C5N, for example. They say if you are doing a load balancer or firewall, that kind of application, so you can consider using this compute optimized C5N class. That is where, and you get more details about it depending on your size. You can pick that particular model. Right. So this particular instance types, which is available in the internet itself. If you are designing an application, I spent a lot of time in this particular page itself. I would say like 7 or 14 days to come up with one deployment, because you have to put a lot of effort in defining that particular class, because that makes a small mistake here, picking up the wrong model for the application would cost a lot of money to your organization. Right. So going back to the session, let me. Yeah. So these are the different instance types. Then this is what you get when you create your free tier account. So you get a T2 micro instance. You can use it for free. That you 750 hours per month, for 12 months. You can use T2 micro instance, where you can learn all of the EC2 instance features, and you can become a master for this using 750 hours. You can learn a lot of things about AWS EC2. So don't misuse. Don't lose that opportunity that you have that account. Make use of this 750 hours. Try to make use of at least 300 hours. Right. All right. So going to the security groups, basically security group is like a virtual firewall. Whenever you have your server defined, you will have a firewall. Like in Microsoft, you will have a thought firewall, and similarly you can have a physical firewall as well. But security groups is a virtual firewall which you can attach with your EC2 instance, where you can define the ports that will be used with the EC2 instance that you will be using. So you can define, like, let's say you spin up EC2 instance and you want to open SSH access to your EC2 instance. So you have to create a security group where you will be mentioning, I want to open SSH port for this EC2 instance. And also you can specify from which IP address you're going to access that particular EC2 instance. So in that way, your EC2 instance is protected, and only the allowed IP address will be able to access your EC2 instance through SSH access. So yeah, that is how you use it with security groups. So security groups is mainly associated with the EC2 instances, but you can have more protection when you using VPC, virtual private cloud. We will cover sometime in future sessions. where you have some more network access list where you can secure even more security you can provide using that network access list. Right. So once a port rule is defined, it is bidirectional. So that means, yeah. So HTTP, let's say HTTP, you're opening a session, you have opened HTTP port to your EC2 instance because you have opened your deployed your web application in your EC2 instance. So people can, I mean, the traffic can be like both inbound and outbound. So anybody can come to your EC2 instance on a 8080 port, or similarly, the HTTP traffic can go out from your EC2 instance to that particular uh, requester or client, right? And the changes you do on the security groups will take effect immediately. So let's say you have started a EC2 instance and you have noticed some like say virus and some virus software is accessing your web application and trying to bring that uh, server down, so you can immediately close the HTTP port so that you can troubleshoot or secure, or you can give only a particular client access to that. So you can make that change immediately so that immediately your EC2 instance is protected. Right. So EC2 instances can have multiple security groups. So you can have one security group particularly targeted to open a particular port and particular set of ports, and you can have another set of security group which opens another set of ports. You can have your security groups defined granularly so that they can be reused, and also multiple EC2 instances can refer the security group. So it's many to many, like one in EC2 instance can have many security groups. Similarly, many EC2 instances can use a security group. All right. So what I will do is this is a lab where I try to create a T2 micro EC2 instance, which is pre-tied. So we need not to, I need not to pay money for that. So I will also create a security group where I will try to open SSH port and HTTP port. Then let me show you what we'll be doing. Let me directly go to the management console, and here is my EC2 service. You can check that I am in North Virginia region, so I don't have any EC2 instances running because I'm not running and I don't want to pay any money, right? So whenever I use it, I just pin it. So let me go to the launch instance where you see different types of the EC2 images are available. I click free tier only just to make sure I don't spend money in the exercise. So I'll take Amazon Linux here, 64-bit, and here also you see free tier eligible. So I will select T2 micro here, but you can always go for other classes if you want to spend money on it or really you need it. In a real time, you would be picking some of these type of instances, right? So depending on your application need. But for now, I'm going to use T2 micro, where I need not to pay any money for this. So next is a lot of configurations related to the EC2 instance, which I'm doing. So this section where you see network, subnet, and public IP, mostly I will try to cover this part in the VPC section, but for now, we are keeping it as it is. The default, we are trying to keep attach my instance in my default VPC. For every account, there will be a default VPC created for you. So whenever you don't have your own VPC, all those resources will be put in the default VPC. So I'm not touching it, and I will also not talk too much on this so that our focus is primarily on EC2 for now. Then placement group is another topic which I will cover maybe in the next session on the EC2. Then we talked about IAM, right? So where what role I can assign this to this particular EC2 instance so that it can access other AWS resources like S3 bucket or any other thing, or that from the EC2 instance itself, I want to provision some other EC2 instances, or I want to define some CloudWatch monitoring alerts you can do from that EC2 instance. So that time you can create an admin role here and I can assign it here. And what is the shutdown behavior? Just stop it, and you can also enable protection so that you don't accidentally terminate your instance. And tenancy is where I covered, like you want to have a dedicated hardware to be used or shared hardware. We are using shared one. But if you use dedicated hardware, like additional charges will be applied and it is costly. So next is storage. So storage, we have EBS, elastic block storage. I will have a dedicated session on that because we have EBS and we have EFS, elastic file storage. So I think that takes a session itself. But for now, you can think this as a partition, root partition. Typically, whenever you try to create a Linux OS, right, you will have a root partition. So this is a root partition, a physical or virtual hard drive you can think of, and with 8 GB capacity, right? So next is you can have define some tag. So query server or something like that, so that you can identify your this particular EC2 AWS resource with the tag itself. Next is the security group, which I covered, right? Basically, which ports you want to open for this EC2 instance. So for now, let's say I try to open SSH port and HTTP port because I will be showing that I will deploy a web server in it, and I will host HTML file, and I will access it from the external world. So for now, I am adding these two rules. Right. So this is a review of all the selections we did, and I am launching it. So whenever you launch a EC2 instance, right? So it will allow you to create a key pair from which you can connect to your EC2 instance using SSH. So I already have a key, but let me create a new key value pair so that you also understand the process. Basically, if you don't have a key pair, I mean, you can think this key pair as a like a credentials to access your EC2 instance over SSH. So that is what they try to explain here as well. So you need to have a key pair to have your EC2 accessed from your box through SSH. Right, so I have my EC2 instance starting. So, okay, so, and yeah, tag is another thing is useful. I have used a tag with name. In that, it has taken the tag and used my EC2 instance with that name here. You see this? Let me give some time. It will come. You can see that it is running. So we have our EC2 instance or virtual machine running, up and running. It also got a public IP address. So using this IP address, we will be accessing our EC2 instance, right? And this is initializing. Maybe we have to give some more time. Maybe it will have to have some startup scripts. If there is a startup script defined for it, it will be doing initialization. So for that, it may take some more time. But yeah, for now, it is already machine is up, and it has. AWS assigns a public IP address and a private IP address to the EC2 instance. So from the using the public IP address, we can access the EC2 instance. So let me start. For that, what we have to have is we need to, let me see. So you see that in my screen, you see Hari KP, that is the key pair I have created to access this particular EC2 instance. So from Windows, if you are trying to access this particular EC2 instance from a Mac or a Linux machine, you can, using this PEM file itself, you will be able to connect directly. But on the Windows, you have to generate a public key out of the PEM file. So you can use SSH keygen tool. I have in the history. So I have it in the history. So basically, there is a SSH keygen command using which you can generate a public key from that. So that is what I am doing now. So now I have my public key generated from the PEM file. Then I have to rename the PEM file to, just I have to take that PEM file extension, because I will be using these two files from a secure SSH. There is a plugin. If you have a Chrome browser installed, there is a secure shell app. Yeah, so you can add your extension if you have a Chrome browser in it. Then you can launch that particular extension. Then let's go to our EC2 instance and take the public IP address from here. So I am copying my public IP address here. Then on the import part, what I'll be doing is I have generated the public key and the key pair. So I'll be selecting that. Then I enter connect. So it is asking, do you want to trust it? So that's it. We have connected to the EC2 instance we just created, right? So this is what it is. So typically you see your VM virtual machine, if you create from your corporate also, you'll be able to connect like this. So here in this case, I have connected to my EC2 server instance using EC2 user. But what I will do is I will try to install some Apache server so that you can check the web access part also from there, right? So I try to elevate myself as a root user. Then I'll see if there is any update. It's doing update. Let's give some time to. This is to ensure, this is to ensure my EC2 instance is up to date with all the security patches, etc. Right. So this is now installed. My OS or the EC2 instance is up to date. Now I try to install Apache. HTTPD is it's a kind of a web server where you can deploy. You can listen for the HTTP traffic. Right. So I have installed Apache now. What I'll do is I will start the service. before that, what I can do is I have to go to etc www, then HTML is a folder where we can, it's not etc, it's wow, yeah. So here we can actually place a file, HTML file, which we will access from, which we can access from your browser, or anybody can access that. Let me create a test file here. So let's say nano. So here HTML, I'll say hello AWS world. I close it. I am saving it. So let me check. I have my file. So now I have my HTML file. So what I'll do is I will now start the service from here. So now I have started my service. So if I take the public IP address here, I could access my web page from here. So anybody of you also can try accessing this. You will be able to access this. So I think we don't have enough time to talk more about it, but I do have a lot more to talk on this topic. But what I'll do is I will also schedule one more session. Like I said, EC2 is a vast topic which takes two more sessions. So I will continue my session from here in the next week. I will give 2 or 3 more minutes quickly. So in case anybody have quick questions or quick inputs for the next session, we can cover that. Yeah. Any questions?
Okay. Question. I see you actually, after you spin up this EC2 instance, you have looked up for any of the updates coming in. Is it something that doesn't?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
So regarding this AC2, so I mean, you showed one example. So if we wanted to, deploy something, some solutions or something like that, how do you do it? Can we just maybe take one real life example next session to deploy a particular solution, or maybe any .NET Core application or something like that, or maybe any solution?
Yeah. So you can give me your application requirement, like say you want to deploy your Oracle server, or I mean that's what you're talking about, or how is it? So let's say you have an application, right? Your application will have Oracle and WebLogic, or say you want to install Redis on it, or you want to install Cassandra on it. That's what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like if there are, or maybe I don't want to add a more complexity, but if any .NET web application or any web application, if we want to deploy and see couple of connectivity, like maybe one database server, or maybe whatever this we can cover in the next session in a short time, maybe we can just take on that.
Yeah, so I will definitely do that. I mean, in this session, what I tried to cover is I'm trying to showcase the capabilities of the EC2 instance, right? So that is where I try to show how you can spin up an EC2 instance and how you can deploy, you can install software, like say you can install Postgres or any other software in it, like typically how you do it you can run any shell command here. That means say you want to install any other software, you can do the installation in the same way, which I showcased now, right? So my primary goal was to showcase the EC2 instances and its capabilities. And from here, I'm leaving it to your imagination, right? So basically, from the self script, you can do whatever the things you were trying to do, you were doing with your traditional server. You can do all that things. So, I have showcased how you can get that access to the SSH prompt, right? From here, you are free to run all the commands. So you can try to do that. But what I will make a note of is I will try to cover the remaining EC2 instance concepts. Like I do have auto bootstrap scripts, and I have to cover some other topics. Once we cover that, then I will take that real time example. Maybe you can give me a write up, like what kind of application you want to deploy, or we want to do a working session. We can definitely do that. I think I agree with that. With that kind of exercise, it will help others also to understand in detail.
Yes, thanks, Hari. Thanks, Hari.
Yeah.
And thanks for for this initiative.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I was muting you. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for this initiative. That's it. Keep doing it. So we will join. Yeah, we will join all the sessions too. Thanks.
Hari, let's say if we are deploying a solution with EC2, I'm a new to let's assume that I'm new to AWS. If I want to get suggestions from any technical account manager from AWS, will they help us out about that cost effective solution, or how exactly in this case?
Yeah, so it depends on your. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it depends on the support model you use. There are, AWS, right, they're trying to take money out of everything, right? So they try to take money from the services. They're also trying to take money from the support model also. So you can actually take the enterprise support. So in that case, they will help in every aspect. They try to share. You have to share your application requirements with them, and they will try to propose or they suggest something. But what I would suggest is we need to understand better than them, because it's your money, right? So they will not put serious thought about it. They will try to see how they can make more money out of it, right? So yeah, it's always good to have 2 or 3 more people who has the knowledge on the AWS. Run your thoughts. That is what we do in our organization. We don't actually believe a single person. Believe in the sense we want this particular EC2 or AWS design will be run by multiple AWS experts, and finally we come up with it, because it all leads to the money and how much money we can save it. So yeah, pricing support models, there are different support models. If you take a corporate support model, yeah, you can call them and they will help you to pick the right EC2 for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions? Feel free to put it in the in the WhatsApp group. We can continue discuss there. But otherwise, yeah, I will continue to do more two sessions on the EC2. Most of them will be like labs. You can see this online, but unfortunately today we couldn't give enough time for questions. But we will try to put the content less, and we'll see more interactive sessions next. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hari.
Thanks, Hari.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you.
Hari.
Thanks. Bye.